Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Christie, the famously short-tempered and sometimes verbally abusive New Jersey governor, has decided on his next project. He's launching a think tank to advance civility. The goal is to address what he calls today's ugly and divisive politics because people aren't having civilized conversations. So the governor, who used town halls to yell at his own constituents and whose aides were convicted for carrying out traffic vendettas, is anointing himself a civility cop today. Obviously, this had us thinking, this is like rain on your wedding day or 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. Isn't it ironic, as Alanis Morissette would say?
I was wondering why you think it's fair to be cutting school funding to public schools.
What's her name? Hey, Gail, you know what? First off, it's none of your business. I don't ask you where you send your kids to school. Don't bother me about where I send mine.
And you're not compensating me for my education, and you're not compensating me for my experience.
Well, you know what? Then you don't have to do it. If what you want to do is put on a show and giggle every time I talk, well, then I have no interest in answering your question.
Let me tell you something. After you graduate from law school, you conduct yourself like that in a courtroom, your rear end's going to get thrown in jail, idiot.
Did I say on topic? Are you stupid? On topic. On topic. Next question. Good. Thank you all very much, and I'm sorry for the idiot over there.
I worked the cones, actually, Matt. Unbeknownst to everybody, I was actually the guy out there. I was in overalls and a hat, so I wasn't, but I actually was the guy working the cones.
Appreciate that. You want to have the conversation later? I'm happy to have it, buddy. But until that time, sit down and shut up.
Isn't it ironic? That song actually hits Christie in two places. The irony of this civility quest, and then another line that could apply to his Bridgegate scandal, a traffic jam when you're already late. It is hard to take this story seriously, which is why we turn to comedian Chuck Nice.
I like the reference.
Christie fighting for civility.
See, here's what you don't understand, though, Ari, is that sit down and shut up. That was said in love. Okay?
Okay.
That's the deal.
I didn't know about that.
No, there's a loving way to tell somebody to go to hell or sit down and shut up or you die. There's a loving way. And Christie has perfected that. Everything that we saw there.
You're talking about like when someone is being really funny and someone says, stop.
Right.
And they mean like go on.
Yeah, just please go on. See, what people don't understand, and I think what you are really trying to let the public know, is that Christie now sees himself as a bridge to bring about communication between those who might otherwise be at odds. A bridge. A Christie bridge.
A traffic-laden bridge. Let me ask you this. Do you know that we had, for this segment, that we take this seriously, that's why you're here.
Yes, that's why I'm here.
We didn't even get all the hypocrisy into that setup?
No, you can't.
Because who is Christie's biggest political ally and mentor right now?
Ally? It would have to be, I don't know.
He's in the White House.
Maybe Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
Perhaps.
I mean, he chaired the transition. Yeah. He was the first endorser in the Republican field of competitors. And look at this. He was asked about this because he's got the Civility Project, and he said, no conflict there. Quote, the negative tone in our politics existed long before Trump. You're never going to agree with anyone 100%.
And guess what? And if you remember last week, Trump said this: everything I say is in love. We do love as well. Love. And so, I mean, listen, these are two peas in a pod that belong together. I like what they're doing here. They're bringing the country together by showing us what it is to be apart. Okay?
Do you think, and this is my final question, because you are actually, this is the most apt question for you.
Okay.
This is what you know.
All right.
Do you think Chris Christie is pulling a giant prank on us with this?
Wow, that's a very good question.
Like in a month, does he come out and be like, I can't believe you guys even, this isn't really a civility think tank. I'm Chris Christie.
I think, oh my God.
You
know what, right now I just see Chris Christie as Dave Chappelle. Right now, the way you say, I'm Chris Christie. That's it. I'm Chris Christie. I'm Chris Christie.
Watch it.
What did you expect? That's what I'm saying. Like, what did you expect? Civility. Civility?
Can I count up in my thank you to you, because I always love talking to you. You make a good news day easier. You did your impression of Donald Trump,
right?
And you did a Chappelle Christie portmanteau.
There you go. Hey, right on.
It is Wednesday, the 21st of August of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this priest? Hey, speaking of which, and I know that really Smothered Benedict is one of our lovely, lovely, lovely egg dishes with a lovely velvety hollandaise sauce. In this instance, we're going to be calling out the priest here, Wayne Allen Root. Oh, yeah, he wrote another. Oh, Trump loves his love notes. He really does. He just can't get away from a love note. Somebody writes him a love note, he just swoons. Well, Wayne Allen Root, yeah, the end times heretic. Jesus. Or some people would also refer to him as, an evangelical grifter. Tent revival grifter. Yeah, look it up, tent revival. I can't believe that I lived in the time of actual tent revivals. Oral Roberts, yeah, that Oral Roberts would cure people of their maladies. And you could see him. They'd go up there, they'd be like, they'd have a limp from a broken leg, and Oral Roberts would lay hands on them. They'd twitch a little bit, because when the hand of God touches you, you twitch. And then they would walk off the stage without a limp. Cured. Well, that grift went on so well, he was able to start a university. Wow. Anyway, Wayne Allen Root, an end times grifter, wrote a love note to Trump about, oh, you are so great. You're the greatest president in the history of the world and the greatest president Israel could have ever had. You are the king of Israel. And the Jews in Israel know that you're the second coming of God, and the American Jews don't know anything about you and they hate you. Yikes. So Trump retweeted that, and he's essentially embracing that he's the second coming of God, and all the Jews in Israel just know that he's the second coming of God, except for one thing. Only an end times grifter and a libertine like Trump, a greedy libertine at that, would think that Jews believe in a second coming. Okay. I know that the base is lapping it up. Oh, even the Jews believe he's the second coming. Yeah, I know you believe that. Oh, I also read a study that actually, and this is a reputable study from a reputable professor and university, that in spite of our understanding, our group here on our side, whatever that is, in spite of our understanding that the Trump cultist, the Cult 45, Trump bro, the people who vote for him, his base, are not so psychophantic as we believe. They are not so cultic as we have been presuming. And I say presuming because I think it's been a bit of a prejudice. What is it when it's post-judice? After the fact. What is it then? Regardless, apparently. Now, of course, there are, the diehard types that, they're going to, I guess, walk off the cliff with him. But apparently, according to this study, it's not so Jonestown as we've been telling people or seeing or believing. So we need to consider that because I have to say my anecdotal experience, and one can never use your own small little anecdotal experience as being a representation of a whole, because you just don't have a large enough sample to be able to discern that. That said, my anecdotal experience is that there's no use arguing with a Trump voter. The ones I run into are, Colt 45. They believe that Jews think that Trump is the second coming. And you explain to them, actually Jews don't believe in a second coming because they haven't experienced the first coming yet. But that will fall on deaf ears, as we all know. So I'm going to dive into that study before the end of the week, and we'll go over that somewhat too. Well, of course, Greenland is still in the news, and Trump blew off the president of Denmark because she said Greenland is not for sale. And, you've got to understand, if the king of Israel wants to buy Greenland, you sell Greenland to the king of Israel. Well, I think that she actually scored a victory, so I chalk that up to Vikings 1, Trump 0. Actually, it's not really Vikings 1. You could almost say Vikings 3 or 4, because we got to put Finland in there too from the few times that they've had to deal with the king of Israel. Well, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, at the top, that guy that's known for his notorious bullying, sit down and shut up tirades, traffic jam revenge, and short-tempered constituent bashing. Christie is now launching an organization for, wait for it, civility in politics. Christie and civility, that is hard to say in the same sentence unless you're offering it as a critique of Christie. On the rest of the menu, Tennessee is sued over a new law that could put people in jail just for registering voters. You thought Acorn was dead? Apparently, they're going to make sure that the last vestiges of democracy are destroyed. And what better way than to keep people from registering to vote? And if someone's registering you to vote, they must be a criminal. They must be. 3 more states join the wave of lawsuits to block Trump's new anti-immigrant rule. That's up to, looks like 17 now, I believe. And Trump said farmers who want him to end his trade war are dumb people. He always hurts the ones who love him. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where South Korea will double the radiation testing of Japanese food contaminated from the tsunami-damaged Fukushima nuclear power plant. Wordy, I know. And the Dominican Republic's largest drug trafficking gang, a group that used 2 former Major League Baseball players to launder assets, is dismantled. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page, you will notice right there by the social media scroll is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page from the chat room link and social media scroll at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You will then notice our Patreon link. A very secure site. Please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. That recurring contribution helps Netroots Radio continue resisting as the founders originally intended so many years and decades ago, right at the beginning, even before the beginning. And we've been doing this continuously, 24/7, 365 Resistance Radio for over 8 years now. This is our 8th anniversary. Next year, it'll be the 9th. Let's keep it going. All right. And truly, your generosity has allowed us to do this because you are our largest contributor, and we would be unable to do it without you. Thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, go to @NetrootsRadio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, I'm @JusticePutnam. Putnam, okay? Man spelled backwards. All right. Listen. And I post the show notes and links diary up on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get those links out on social media in what's known in the profession as the scramble period. They don't really call it that, but I like to. We even have it in the Netroots Radio style manual. That 10-minute scramble period is the scramble period. Okay, you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Okay, I'm still trying to get over the idea of Christie having an organization about civility in politics. A more apt organization or school or lesson, I don't know, would be the utter destruction of civility in politics. I think that's what he's more adept at. I'm not so sure that you have to understand what is civil to be able to break the rules. Okay? I don't think it really works that way. But who knows? Maybe he's had an epiphany. And I gotta say, actually, now when I start weighing all of these various possibilities, when you weigh a Trump with a Christie actually comes out as the level-headed, calm entity in all of this. So I think that he figures he's got a way back into the body politic. Okay, I know you're expecting me to do some sort of shaming, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. All right, let's look at this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Comes out of Share Blue Media by Lisa Needham. Oh, before I begin, I was taken to task here locally about my biases and that I don't look at both sides and I only present one side and all that stuff. And I just want to remind folks, there's no fairness doctrine here. I don't need to give a countervailing argument to support the other side. Please. First of all, we don't have that kind of journalism anymore. And I think that part of what we're doing as resistance is, it's not a countervailing opinion. Of course it's a bias. And of course, we, being liberal leftist Democrats, we are going to weigh whatever possible good side there might be to the other argument. But there's no good side to fascism. I don't care what anybody says. There's no excuse or absolving the Proud Boys. And then using the argument, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but then using the argument that, well, the FBI has called Antifa a terrorist organization, so how can you say that the Proud Boys, they're being attacked by Antifa? You know, everything's, excuse my French in the morning, but everything is ass backwards, and we know it. Of course, Barr's FBI would call Antifa a terrorist organization. Right after Ferguson, they started floating the idea of black identity extremism as some sort of card-carrying organization that they had to, well, destroy utterly. Once again, there were not any black identity extremists going into Presbyterian and white evangelical dance with rattlesnake churches at the strip mall, shooting them up. I know that there's all sorts of people convinced that Antifa has just been killing people. It has not happened. You know who has been killing people? By going into synagogues, mosques, Walmarts, running down Heather Heyer in a car, at a rally where fascists came from out of state once again, and the locals stood up to them, and somehow they're Antifa. An anti-fascist is now labeled Antifa because they see black bloc in their heads. Oh, I'm way off on a tangent, but I just got to get this out. Now, no one has heard of black bloc. I mean, they've only been around since the WTO protests in Seattle. Give me a break. They need a Goldstein. They've always been at war with Oceania. And 2 + 2 = 5. That's why you have to keep people from voting. And Lisa Needham has this offering because 3 GOP states, Tennessee, Texas, and Arizona, either passed or contemplated bills that would penalize those who had tried to register people to vote. Now, a coalition of groups led by the NAACP is suing to block Tennessee's law from taking effect. This is what happened to Acorn. Acorn was one of the most effective voter registration groups in the country. It must be known here because I'll just confess, I worked with Acorn, but Acorn was not just a get out the vote registration or get out the votes organization. They were also community activists. And part of that community activism was repairing elderly people's homes because they didn't have enough money to do it themselves because they got into some kind of predatory loan. And so I and several other contractors donated our time and often materials as well to try to do some good work for people who needed it. And Acorn was a management company of sorts that was able to organize these various aspects of repairs or whatnot to be done. They delivered food to people. Bunch of commies because they were black. So the idea of keeping black people, poor people, elderly people, people of color, people who are not mega yacht rich from voting really has been the MO of, we'll call it the other side, for quite some time now. Even before GW. Anonymous worker bees from the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I hope I can do this. You know how the AP is. New York State, New York City, Connecticut, and Vermont sued the federal government yesterday, Tuesday, over new Trump administration rules blocking green cards for many immigrants who use public assistance, including Medicaid, food stamps, and housing vouchers. The states and city join a growing list of entities suing over the change, one of the Republican administration's most aggressive moves to restrict legal immigration. New York Attorney General Letitia James, a Democrat, said the new rules fly in the face of American values and 100 years of case law. Oh, I'm sorry. We live in new times now. Precedent has no meaning. Ask Gorsuch. Ask Kavanaugh. Generations of citizens landed on the welcoming shores of Ellis Island with nothing more than a dream in their pockets, she said in a statement announcing the lawsuit. The Trump administration's thinly veiled efforts to only allow those who meet their narrow ethnic, racial, and economic criteria to enter our nation is a clear violation of our laws and our values. And that explains why so many anchor babies from the former Soviet bloc are moving in here. Anchor babies. Because, of course, everyone knows it's white genocide. We have to have more white babies. No one ever said that it ever had to make sense. But it does appeal to a tickle in the lizard brain now, doesn't it? More than 15 other states have already sued to challenge the new rule, including California, Washington State, and Pennsylvania. The rule, set to take effect in October, would broaden a range of programs that can disqualify immigrants from legal status if they are deemed to be a burden to the U.S. Ken Cuccinelli, acting director, with the emphasis on acting, because none of this is Senate confirmed. Director of Citizenship and Immigration Services said earlier this month that the rule change will ensure those who come to the country don't become a burden, though they do pay taxes. A second-class population doesn't seem so unusual now, does it? We've only been doing it since 1619. Oliver Willis of Share Blue Media brings us this final offering here on the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Trump derided farmers and other Americans who have criticized his trade war for causing economic hardship, referring to them as dumb, while addressing reporters yesterday, Tuesday. Trump was asked to address concerns that the trade war is hurting the U.S. economy, possibly creating a recession. Somebody had to take on what China was doing to the United States economically, Trump said. The smart people say, thank you very much. And the dumb people have no idea. And then you have the political people and they go with the wind. Trump has also insisted that the United States is winning big on the trade issue. Earlier this month, Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue mocked farmers for whining about Trump's trade war while he was addressing a group of Minnesota farmers. The audience booed, but farmers are not winning. They have had to receive billions in bailout funds from taxpayers in an attempt to supplement the income they're losing because China won't pay Trump's tariffs. On Monday, the American Farm Bureau Federation slammed the trade war as, quote, a body blow to thousands of farmers and ranchers who are already struggling to get by, end quote. The group said that because of the trade war, farmers could lose all of the $9.1 billion market that existed in Chinese trade by the end of the year. Trump has continued to insist America is in a very good position with China, while his administration has not been able to obtain concessions through multiple negotiations with China's government. No matter how much money is lost or how the economy is impacted, Trump appears to be dead set on following through with his trade war. Hit him high, hit him low. And when you hit them everywhere you can, you're going to lose your casino. Again. All right, that brings us to our break period, which we better do. We're just eating up time today. And when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Clearing the Decks. The most amazing thing about the documentary Maiden is that the events it covers took place only 30 years ago. Obviously, women have come away since then, including in male-dominated sports, as in the portrayal here, the sport of sailing. The film looks back at the 1989 all-female crew of the boat, which gives the movie its title, in the Whitbread round-the-world race. Starting and ending in Southampton, England, with legs to Uruguay, Australia, New Zealand, and Florida, the race continued for nearly 9 months. The crew was headed by the then 27-year-old Brit, Tracy Edwards, who learned to sail at 17 after dropping out of school and bouncing around Europe working odd jobs. Despite a lack of encouragement, to put it mildly, within the sailing community, Edwards was so determined to make her dream a reality that she mortgaged her home and bought a second-hand boat. However, it wasn't until she got the backing of a well-known international political figure, whom she met by chance years earlier, that her dream became a reality. Even after the women met the entry requirements, it's hardly smooth sailing. The women had to contend with ridicule and outright misogyny from the male sports writing community, who viewed them as a novelty. That attitude changed quickly, though, when it became clear that Edwards and her crew were there to win. This doc does a superb job showing Edwards as human, looking in retrospect at some of the mistakes she made, both tactically and in her dealings with the crew. Packed with news footage in the crew's video, Maiden is a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen, where the power of the ocean and the women's Herculean effort trying to conquer it can be appreciated full scale. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. In the summer of 2015, a strange delivery arrived in Munich, Germany. 25 boxes of still frozen snow sent all the way from Antarctica. The reason for shipping 1,100 pounds of snow from the bottom of the world? Scientists were hunting for interstellar dust, which might hold clues about our place in the universe. So, first thing scientists did was melt the snow and then filter it for fine particles. Analyzing the remaining dust with mass spectrometry, they found traces of the isotope iron-60, which is primarily produced in two ways, by exploding supernovas or by cosmic rays zapping interplanetary dust. But it's also produced in nuclear reactions here on Earth, by bombs or nuclear reactors. So to determine how much of the stuff was truly interstellar, from beyond our solar system, the researchers used other isotopic clues to screen out quantities of iron-60 produced by nuclear reactions and cosmic rays. And they still had some iron-60 left over to account for, the stuff produced by supernovas.
Just by looking at something which is on our own planet, learn something which is so far away and happened so many millions of years ago. I mean, that's pretty amazing, and that's why I really like this work.
Dominic Cole, an experimental nuclear physicist at the Australian National University. His team reported the results in the journal Physical Review Letters. Cole says this iron-60 might be showering down on us from the local interstellar cloud, the patch of space the solar system's moving through right now. And if the cloud contains material produced by supernovas, Cole says, it could be the ancient remnants of exploding stars, a clue to the structure and formation of the universe. Luckily, we can investigate it all by hunting for dust, right here on Spaceship Earth. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Nemhauser, filling in for your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. As the U.S. population ages, more people are at risk for injuries. The largest percentage of injury-related deaths among this group are caused by falls. Elizabeth Burns is with CDC's National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. She's joining us today to discuss ways to prevent injuries and deaths from falls among senior adults. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me.
Elizabeth, what are some of the more common consequences when a senior adult falls?
Well, first, it's important to note that falls are incredibly common. More than 1 in 4 older adults will fall in a given year. Common consequences include loss of independence and an increased fear of falling, as older adults are afraid to do the same kinds of activities they were doing before. And this can actually lead to more falls, as older adults have less strength in their lower body. Common consequences include hip fracture and traumatic brain injury. And ultimately, in 2016, almost 30,000 older adults died because of a fall.
So are falls more common in men or in women?
Falls are more common in women, and more women go to the emergency department because of a fall, and more women die because of a fall. However, the rate of fall deaths are more common in men than women. What this means is that out of 100,000 men, more will die from a fall than out of 100,000 women.
What are common causes of falls among older people?
Getting on and off the toilet and getting in and out of bed are common causes of falls. Walking around the hallways at night when the lights are off is a common way people fall. There's also an increased amount of medications used in seniors, which have side effects like making them lightheaded, and that increases the risk of falls and is a common cause.
With all of those factors, what are some ways our listeners can decrease their chances of falling?
Older adults should talk to their healthcare provider or doctor about how they can decrease their chances of falling. This can be done during the annual wellness visit or during annual physicals. The doctor will recommend an exercise program that should increase strength and balance, or maybe refer you to a physical therapist. Additionally, they can look through your medications and perhaps reduce your doses or suggest medications that decrease your chances of falls.
Are there things we can do to modify our homes to prevent falling?
Oh, absolutely. Installing grab bars on the side of the toilet, making sure that rugs are taped down or removed, making sure that there's lighting in the hallways are all really simple ways that an older adult can modify their home to prevent falls.
Where can listeners go to get more information about preventing falls?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/falls cdc.gov/study. And that's spelled STEADI.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I've been talking today with Elizabeth Burns about ways to prevent fall-related injuries and deaths among senior adults. Improving strength and agility through regular exercise and removing potential obstacles in the home can help decrease the risk for falls. If you or a loved one is older and struggle with mobility, talk with a healthcare provider about ways to decrease the risks for fall-related injuries and death. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Jeffrey Nemhauser for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Pools, water parks, and other recreational water venues are popular places to relax and stay cool, but they can be sources of serious illness. Since 2000, nearly 500 outbreaks have been reported at recreational water venues in the U.S., resulting in over 27,000 illnesses and 8 deaths. Most were caused by parasites, bacteria, viruses, or certain chemicals in the water. Parents with young children who have diarrhea should not allow their children to swim or play in the water. In addition, bathers should check the inspection scores of pools and water parks and can conduct mini inspections using test strips before getting in the water. A few simple precautions can allow you to share the fun, not the germs. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping Progressive Radio at full power.
Here's a little ditty to help us remember how democracy could be destroyed in Florida in November. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In 2018, Florida voters overwhelmingly approved restoring the right to vote to 1.4 million Floridians who have been disenfranchised because of a felony conviction. Not allowed to vote, no matter how old the conviction or how minor or how much the person has contributed to the community since they served their sentence, or how long it's been since they were in any trouble with the law. One strike and you're out of the voting booth. But after Florida voters restored democracy, the Republican-controlled legislature pretty much canceled the people's vote by enacting a law that says that 4 out of the 5 Floridians with criminal records who have not fully paid their financial obligations still will not be allowed to vote. The new Florida law, which cancels the voters' decision to restore democracy, is a 21st century poll tax. It's like saying, as the New York Times editorial put it, that you're not allowed to get your college diploma until you've paid off your student loans. Florida's electoral votes matter. They could determine the 2020 presidential election. Oh yes, the ditty. Let's continue. In Florida, voters restored the right to vote. But now you see it, and now you don't. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1831. That was the year Nate Turner led a slave rebellion in Southampton, Virginia. From a young age, Turner believed he had a purpose ordained by God. Turner had learned to read from one of his master's sons. He had also learned a deep hatred of slavery from his mother. He came to be regarded as a spiritual leader, or a prophet, by many of the nearby enslaved people. In February of 1831, there was a solar eclipse. Turner took it as a sign that it was time to lead a revolt. He began to make plans. Then, along with 7 other enslaved people, he killed the entire family that owned his plantation. The group made their way from plantation to plantation, killing 51 whites in all. Their plan was to raid the town of Jerusalem. But before they could reach the town, they were met by a militia of 3,000. The small band of between 60 and 75 insurrectionists were no match for the militia. More than 50 slaves were executed. Many more were beaten. Some were from as far away as neighboring North Carolina and had nothing to do with the uprising. White hysteria swept the South. More repressive slave codes were passed in many states. Harsher restrictions were enacted against enslaved people for preaching, being educated, and assembling in large groups. That year, Virginia, Maryland, and Florida all passed laws restricting even freed black men from carrying a gun. Nate Turner escaped the militia into the Dismal Swamp. He stayed there for 6 weeks before he was discovered. He was tried, convicted, and hung. Many historians credit Turner's rebellion and the harsh repression that followed in hastening the coming Civil War and the end of the slave labor system. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 62 degrees. Looks like we're only slated for a high of around 80 today, a precipitous drop in temperature, mostly because there is quite a bit of water hanging in the sky, not quite dropping yet, though we are expecting about 1/4 of an inch today, and then something less than 1/10 of an inch overnight. Winds are light and variable and will remain so throughout the day. Tonight, we're looking at winds light and variable with an overnight low of 61. And then tomorrow will be in the mid-80s. Sunny conditions. Partly cloudy conditions, though some people would call that sun in between the clouds. And winds will be out of the north at their usual 5 to 10 miles per hour. So it looks like rain's going to be starting in about a half an hour. And grass pollen is low. The air quality index is good at 15 parts per million. And the daytime UV index remains high at 7. Locally, barometric pressure is falling at 29.85 inches. Visibility is down to 8 miles. And relative humidity is at 76%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. London is 71 and partly cloudy. Paris is 76 and sunny. Rome is 90 degrees and sunny. Kiev is 89 degrees and fair. Kabul is 80 degrees and fair, and you know what fair weather in Kabul means. Yeah, I don't mean to drone on about it. Hong Kong is 82 and partly cloudy with pretty much, it looks like there's about a 60% chance of heads being bashed in by the Chinese military. Tokyo is 80 degrees and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 58 and clear. San Francisco, California is 59 degrees and fair with a wind advisory. And New York is 85 degrees and sunny with a heat advisory. So stay cool, New York. I know you are. So stay cool, New York. I know you always are. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees from Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. South Korea said that it will double the radiation testing of some Japanese food exports due to potential contamination from the tsunami-damaged Fukushima power plant. Relations between the two U.S. allies are at their worst in years, with a trade row rooted in a decades-old dispute over compensation for South Koreans forced to work during Japan's wartime occupation of the Korean peninsula. South Korea stepped up demands this month for a Japanese response to concerns food produced in the Fukushima area and nearby sea could be contaminated by radiation from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely damaged by the 2011 tsunami. South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety said on yesterday, that it will double the frequency of testing of any food products with a history of being returned in the past 5 years after trace amounts of radiation were detected. The affected food imports from Japan will be relatively minimal, as only about 2 tons are returned out of about 190,000 tons of total Japanese food imports annually. An official at Japan's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries said Japanese food products were safe and the increased radiation testing was unnecessary. It always is, isn't it now? On the other hand, I suppose if it's irradiated, you don't have to worry about pests. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics organizers said on Tuesday that South Korea's National Olympic Committee had sent a letter expressing concern of the possibility of produce grown in Fukushima Prefecture being served to athletes in the Olympic Village. South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Monday summoned the economy minister from the Japanese embassy in Seoul over media reports and international environmental groups' claims that Japan plans to release contaminated water from the Fukushima plant into the ocean. In April, South Korea won the bulk of its appeal in a dispute at the World Trade Organization over import bans and testing requirements it had imposed on Japanese seafood in the wake of the 2011 Fukushima disaster.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
And even more anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Dominican Republic's top prosecutor said that the Caribbean nation's largest drug trafficking gang has been dismantled, a group that allegedly used two former professional baseball players to launder assets. Former MLB pitcher Octavio Dotel was arrested earlier on Tuesday, while Luis Castillo, also a former player, was named by authorities as being part of the gang. More than 40 raids were carried out across the country in connection with the case, according to Dominican Attorney General Jean-Alain Rodriguez. Rodriguez told reporters at a news conference that the case marks the largest anti-narcotics operation in the recent history of the Dominican Republic. He said the gang, allegedly run by nightclub owner Cesar Emilio Peralta, controlled one of the region's biggest drug trafficking operations, transporting illicit drugs, including cocaine, from South America to both the U.S. and Europe. Reuters could not immediately locate Dotel, Castillo, or Peralta, or even their lawyers, for comment. And as that story develops, we'll fill you in. That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. In fact, we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya. A little bit of spice in your life. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coeur. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.